Welcome back to The Young Voter. Most of the political news that happened this week was foreign. But first, before we get to Egypt, let's focus on the domestic. There was one big item of news that happened this week, and that was the repeal of healthcare was voted on in the Senate. It was an amendment to an aviation bill, and it failed on a straight party line vote. No surprise. 51 to 47 it failed, with 2 Democrats not voting, but with 2 very conservative Democrats, including Pat Nelson and Joe Manchin, joining the rest of the Democratic caucus in voting no on this amendment. But another amendment, which eliminates pretty onerous tax reporting clause for small businesses, that amendment was passed 81 to 17. So a change was made to the law, but no law was repealed. Healthcare was not repealed. Not a surprise. Everyone expected it. The Republicans have done their little show vote. Their base should be happy, angry at the Democrats. Good for everyone. Let's move on, please. One of the funny things is this aviation bill passed, and there was one vote against one of the amendments. It was Rand Paul, who voted no on an amendment that would have prevented people from using laser pointers at airplanes. I don't know why Rand Paul voted no on that amendment, but I think it's kind of funny. Is he just a contrarian, or is there a reason behind that? I really don't know. I haven't done enough research into it, but I think it's kind of funny that Rand Paul wants people to be allowed to point lasers at airplanes. I don't know. So, getting back to now foreign policy. Okay, of course, the protests in Egypt this week have been continuing. They've been ongoing. And recently, over the past couple of days, they've been violent because pro-Mubarak protesters have faced off against the anti-Mubarak crowd. Now, these pro-Mubarak protesters appear to be paid thugs operating on behalf of the government. So they appear to be plainclothes police officers that are trying to wreak havoc and therefore justify a military crackdown on the protests. That did not succeed, even though there was violence for 2 days. Today, Friday, hundreds of thousands turned out all over Egypt for, quote, the day of departure, obviously clamoring and calling for President Hosni Mubarak to step down and leave Egypt. And finally, this week, the Obama administration made it clear that President Mubarak needs to leave, and the sooner the better. For too long, the United States has propped up favorable dictators all around the world in defiance of our most basic principle, individual liberty and personal representation of the individual. Now, finally, the United States has been able to pull the rug out from one of the biggest dictators in the Middle Eastern world that we supported. Finally, the Obama administration has done what previous U.S. administrations were too timid to do. The Obama administration has come up and stood on the side of the people, on the side of democracy. No longer will people in the Middle East have an excuse to be oppressed. No longer will dictators around the world have the assured backing of the United States in pursuing their agenda, regardless of the costs to their people. Finally, the United States government has stood on the side of freedom. And regardless of what government takes form in Egypt, whether pro-Western or anti-Western, that government will be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people of that individual country. And the lessons and blessings of the United States will have been perpetuated unto those people. The United States will no longer have to hide in shame for supporting dictators and monarchs who do not represent the will and do not meet the needs of their citizens. So I hope that we can all agree that we are taking small but decisive steps in the fight forward for liberty and freedom. Obviously, the protesters both in Egypt and in Tunisia, and a lot of other Arab countries that are already simmering with dissent, want more representation, want more bread on the table for their families, and want to be recognized as the rightful citizens of their country that they are. So again, this is an appeal to everyone. It doesn't matter what government takes place and takes form after Hosni Mubarak leaves, other than the fact that it must be a government for the people. It must be a government representative of the people of Egypt and fully sanctioned and elected by the people of Egypt. Because if we are going to praise and extol democracy from our own rooftops, we must do so not just to the narrow confines of our own nation, but globally. Because otherwise, we're hypocrites. Thank you again for watching The Young Voter.